You switch the filament on in the beam controller window in this button here, on. This window has the controls for the filament and for the HT. Remember that you should not use the HT controls after you've switched on the HT voltage. If you switch off the HT instead of switching off the filament, it might take another 20 minutes for you to be able to use the microscope again. As the filament comes on, this green indicator here will grow up to the position of very close to this red arrowhead. To define the safe parameters, click on the settings in the TM imaging window. This will open the imaging setup window here. Make sure that Save After Acquire is ticked, and then click on Auto Save Setup. This will open the Auto Save Setup window. First of all, browse for the folder where you want to save your images. In the C drive, go to Users, find your folder or create a folder for you as a user, and then choose the folder where you want to save your images and click Select Folder. Make sure that Building Using String is selected. Then insert here the name of your sample. In the next index window, insert the number of the first image that you're taking on this sample. So let's say it's a sample that you have not imaged before. The next index here will be the number 1. In File Content and Format, make sure Save Image as GATAN format is selected. And then click OK. And in the Imaging Setup window, click OK again. Now your safe parameters are defined. So whenever you capture an image here on the OneView camera window, it will be automatically saving that image in the folder that you selected with the name that you defined. The filament is set for a target of 66. So when it has reached the target here, the filament is ready to use. To be able to see the filament image properly and start using the microscope, switch the room lights off, lift this cover, and keep looking in this screen here, and you should start to see as the filament comes on. Start at a magnification of about 1000 and use the brightness button to spread the beam. Here's the magnification button. Here is the brightness button that you use to spread the beam. If the brightness wheel is on coarse mode, in which case the blue light will be strong, then press on the wheel to go to the fine mode. Now I'm going to change the magnification of the image. And now I am changing the brightness using the brightness button. The grid that I use to put my sample on is a square mesh grid, and what you're seeing, these black lines, are actually the metal lines of the mesh on the grid. When you are the first user of the day and you've switched the filament on and you've placed the objective aperture back in the path of the beam, you may find that the objective aperture has gone slightly out of position. You can see that clearly in this image here, because you can see the shadow of the objective aperture here. So the beam is only really going through here. It's very easy to correct the position of the objective aperture. When correcting the position of the objective aperture, you will need to use a magnification around 500, no more than that, so that you can see the edges of the objective aperture properly. These wheels here control the position of the objective aperture. Small turns in these wheels will make a big difference in the position of the aperture. So when you are adjusting aperture position, only make small turns in these wheels. I am now going to use the objective aperture position wheels to bring the objective aperture back to the center. Use the tracker ball to move your sample in X and Y and find an area that you want to image. I am now using the tracker ball to put in the center an area that I would like to image. I'm going to use the magnification button to make this area bigger until it covers the entire screen. Check that you are using the brightness wheel to the right of crossover. Crossover is the point where the beam is the most focused as you turn the brightness wheel. This is crossover here. Using the brightness wheel to the right of crossover means that when you turn the brightness wheel counterclockwise, you will be focusing the beam. On the other hand, if you're working to the right of crossover, when you turn the brightness wheel clockwise, you will then be spreading the beam. If you find that when you start using the microscope, you are turning the brightness wheel counterclockwise and the beam is spreading instead of condensing, then it means you are not working to the right of crossover. To go back to working to the right of crossover, you should then turn the brightness wheel clockwise until you go past crossover. You will see that you have gone past crossover because as you keep turning the brightness wheel clockwise, the beam will first focus and then start spreading. Always working to the right of crossover seems like a silly thing, but actually it's really important. You will see once you start using the camera that if you're working to the right of crossover, it will be much easier for you to protect the camera from overexposure. So please always try to work to the right of crossover. If the brightness wheel is not set in the right position for you to work to the right of crossover, please make sure you position this wheel in the correct way.